Hey guys, today I will be making a 2024 presidential election prediction. We have Kamala Harris here versus Mike Pence for their running mates. I've just chosen Pete Buttigieg for Harris and then Nikki Haley for Pence. Typically when you choose a VP, you want someone a little bit different. So Pete Buttigieg is a lot of the opposite of Kamala Harris, just like Nikki Haley is for Mike Pence. So before we get started, make sure you join my Discord server if you have not, the link to which is at the very top of the description below. I also do have channel memberships for just 99 cents a month, so you can check that out by clicking on the blue join button. So taking a look at this map here, essentially I've chosen Kamala Harris and Mike Pence my first 2024 presidential election prediction because of course they are both vice presidents. Mike Pence, VP under Trump, and Kamala Harris, the current vice president. And if nothing nothing bad happens, Kamala Harris will be the vice president going into the 2024 presidential election. And if any of these candidates were to run, they would automatically be a front runner. Mike Pence might have a fight with Nikki Haley there, but I think if Mike Pence runs, I think he will probably beat Nikki Haley in the primary. Kamala Harris, you can see being a VP and becoming a presidential nominee is something that happens quite frequently. So Kamala Harris versus Mike Pence, these two vice presidents, and they would be both vice presidents under one-term presidents. So first, I'm going to start off with the solid states for Kamala Harris. Of course, the solid Democratic states, all of the West Coast, they're all going to be solid. California, her home state, of course, is going to be solid. Now, this electoral map does have the updated numbers for 2024. California might go down to 54 the first time. It will decrease in electoral votes in the last, 5-6 decades. But we'll see. California has hit 55. I personally don't think it's going to go down, but it might go down one electoral vote. It really depends on the census. Hawaii, of course, going to be solid. The state of Illinois has also lost an electoral vote. That is almost definite. New York losing another 2 electoral votes. The electoral vote count for New York has been on a decline for the last couple of decades. And then, of course, all of the Northeast, all solid for the Democratic Party, with the exception of the state of New Hampshire. And then the 1st District of Maine is, of course, solid for Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party. So this would give Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris 180 electoral votes. And if you remember, in the 2020 election, these states gave Joe Biden 183 electoral votes. So yes, this map would give it more of an advantage to the GOP, as of course Texas gaining 3 electoral votes and Florida gaining 2. So I'll go over those 2 states in just a few moments here. So if you're still not aware or you forgot, because it has been a while since I've done an electoral map, the percentages I use for solid is 15% or more. 7 to 15 is likely. Lean is from 2 to 7%, and anything under 2% is a tilt state. So for the solid states for Mike Pence, and in this case with Nikki Haley, this is just hypothetical for the vice presidents. I just put someone there as a placeholder. It's really just Mike Pence versus Kamala Harris. So for Pence, Idaho, Wyoming, of course, all very solid. North and South Dakota obviously are going to be solid for Mike Pence. I would also see Montana probably being a solid state in 2024. If you want to take a look at this map here, the state of Montana has moved to the left by quite a bit. If you look at the history of Montana in 2020, of course, Trump won this by 16.3%, 20.5% in 2016. This was 2020, 2016, and 2008. It was, of course, a likely state for Mitt Romney. Before that, a lean state for John McCain. So out of these states in this essential area, Montana is probably the most liberal. In 2024, I would probably say solid or maybe likely. I'll actually give it to Mike Pence as a likely state. So Montana, I would probably have to give him as likely in this case, actually. So Montana is going to be likely. The 1st and 3rd district of Nebraska, obviously going to be solid states. And then Missouri and Kansas, I would put these 2 states as likely states. If you look at this map here, Kansas did move to the left, as well as Missouri from 2016, and they were barely likely states or solid states for Trump in this election. For Mike Pence, I think he is just a weaker candidate overall, and I would have to put these states as likely for Mike Pence. And really, the Republican Party right now is really much more divided than the Democratic Party has been in a very long time. You don't see supporters of Bernie Sanders or supporters of Joe Biden, wishing for the death of Bernie Sanders, like you had, with some of those Trump supporters wishing, to hang Mike Pence. So although the Democratic Party is more divided, more or less among the progressive and more moderate liberal lines, it's much less divided than the Republican Party right now. I mean, the House and Senate are really just trying to figure out what they're going to do in these next couple of years, whether or not they will continue to be the party of Trump as it's been for the last 4 or 5 years, or if they're going to change direction and become, the traditional Republican Party that they have been for decades. So Mike Pence, Kansas and Missouri, these states would be likely. All of the South would still be solid. I mean, these states are not going to be likely for the Republicans anytime soon. I mean, look at this. They've been solid for such a long time. 2004, 2008, not really as likely, but still, I mean, in every election since 2012, they've basically all been solid. And in 2020, Trump plus 25 in Alabama, 16 in Mississippi, 27 in Arkansas, and 18 in Louisiana, as well as Oklahoma, 33%. So these states in the South, they're all going to be solid. So will Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. I would also add Indiana. This, of course, is Mike Pence's home state. I think he would perform very well there. It is his home state, so he would do pretty well there in the state of Indiana. As for Utah, as you can see in 2020, Trump actually won the state by 20.5%, which was definitely much higher than I expected. Basically, the entire state shifted to the right from 2016. However, from 2016, Evan McMullin, the independent, did receive a pretty significant amount of votes there, because in 2016, no candidate received a majority of the votes. It was a plurality for Donald Trump that gave him the state of Utah in 2016. So the state did theoretically move to the right. If you look back at 2016, it was an 18% margin, but of course, you did have the third-party candidate, but for Mitt Romney, 48% for Mitt Romney. Of course, he was Mormon, and Utah is the most Mormon state in the country. So Mitt Romney, of course, did very, very well there. John McCain, too, 28.2%. If you go back another 4 years, 2004, Bush, 45.5%. This state is definitely moving to the left, and Utah, 20.5% for Trump. I think it's probably going to shift to the left from 2020 to 2024, but it's still going to remain a pretty solid Republican state in 4 years. One state that I think is really surprising with how fast it is moving to the left, that would be the state of Alaska, 14.7% in 2016 for Trump. That wasn't even that great. Romney did essentially the same. John McCain was 21.5% for John McCain in Alaska. And if you compare 2016 to 2020, most of the state did move to the left. That northern region did move to the right, but most of it did go to the left there in the state of Alaska. And if you go back just a couple of decades, 1996, 17.5% for Bob Dole, 92, 9.2%. So, I mean, Bush, 23%, and Reagan, 6%. So, state of Florida has been a Republican state, I mean, for decades now, but in recent history, it has been moving a little bit towards the left, and I think that Democrats will do a little bit better. I don't see Alaska becoming a solid state for the Republicans in the near future. I think this state will continue to move more and more to the left. And then finally, the state of South Carolina, that's going to be likely. Of course, it's the Lindsey Graham destroy Jamie Harrison. I don't want to say destroy, but he did very, very well against Jamie Harrison. Jamie Harrison had fundraised the most of any Democratic candidate or a candidate for Senate in history. He had the largest haul in 1 month for any candidate ever. Trump won it by 11.5%. Previously, it was 14.3%. Mitt Romney, 10.5%. So it's been staying around that likely area, the state of South Carolina, for quite a while now. And if you want to look at the presidential map, it went both ways, to be honest. But if you look at the percentages here, it was 55 and 43 for Joe Biden. And then next, I want to take a look at the state of Nebraska. Overall, the at-large vote for Nebraska, this was solid for the Republican Party. I would probably put it as solid for the at-large vote. I don't know why I didn't do that earlier, but the state of Nebraska at-large is still pretty solidly red. although Joe Biden was able to flip that second district in 2020. So this gives the Republicans 125, and I haven't even gone through the likely Democratic states. So for these states that I would say are likely for the Democratic Party, you have the at-large vote there in the state of Maine, of course. In 2020, it was, of course, a 11-point margin. I can probably see that decreasing a little bit in 2024, but that would give another 2 electoral votes for Kamala Harris. And then, of course, Colorado, New Mexico, I don't think anyone should be surprised by that. These two states have been moving to the left by so much in the last couple of decades. I mean, 2020, 13.5%, 10.8%. If you just go back to 1984, of course, this was a landslide for Ronald Reagan, but 28%. Even if you go back even more, 1976, this was the election of Jimmy Carter. So when Jimmy Carter won, Ford still won these two states. And the first time these two states went blue was 1992 with Bill Clinton. And since then, these couple of states have been moving more and more to the left, especially since the beginning of the Obama era. Bush, of course, won both of them in 2008 or 2004 against John Kerry. But in 2008, these two states have become more and more solid. Barack Obama, of course, destroying John McCain basically everywhere. But Joe Biden did do pretty well in Colorado, the best for a Democrat in decades. And really, Donald Trump, I think that the Republican Party just does not perform as well. They just have not had a good performance in a very long time. Donald Trump was the best performing Republican on the Electoral College in 28 years. The last Republican to do better than Donald Trump's performance in 2016 was George Bush Sr. in 1988. So since then, Bush Jr., he won really, really small margins against Kerry and Gore, and then you saw Trump with that victory. So, the Democratic Party has been doing a lot better in elections, just, winning the popular vote and all of that. And I think that is a struggle the Republican Party does need to deal with. Moving on from that, I want to go through these states, Minnesota and Virginia, as well as New Hampshire. I would say these three states are also pretty much going to be likely states. Minnesota has the longest Democratic voting streak. It has not voted for a Republican. It's been a really long time. I'm actually not exactly too sure what it was, but I just know that Minnesota did not vote for Ronald Reagan, of course, in 1984. That was when he destroyed Walter Mondale. Of course, the 13 electoral votes, D.C. and Minnesota. So Minnesota was still a Mondale state by 0.18%, but that does make Minnesota the state with the longest Democratic voting streak, as every other state went red. Solid margins in almost all of them. So state of Minnesota, that's going to be blue, Virginia as well, and New Hampshire. Joe Biden actually did do really, really well for a Democrat. So it actually moved New Hampshire a little bit more to the right, just because if you look at the map in 2016, you, of course, had plus 0.37%, 2020, plus 7.3% for Joe Biden. So that's what I would put it. Minnesota could also be a lean state, but for right now, I'm going to keep it in that likely column. Virginia, definitely likely. It's not going to be lean. I'd be very, very surprised if Virginia was lean. So these states, I have no doubt about them. They're going to go this way. 223 for Kamala Harris and 124 for Mike Pence. So moving on from this, we have the swing states now. I would first off give the states of Iowa and Ohio both to Mike Pence. I think he would do well, but they're not going to be the likely margins that Donald Trump saw. If you look at this electoral map here, you would see that in 2012, you of course had both of these states being Obama states. They were blue in 2008 as well. And of course, Ohio did lose its bellwether streak in 2020 when it voted for Donald Trump against the eventual winner, Joe Biden. Of course, the state has gone red, 2.1%, 0.67% for Bush, but really it went from plus 5.8% for Obama in 2012, 2016, plus 9.4% for Trump. So Trump did very well in the Rust Belt. Mike Pence is not going to do the same. He is much less charismatic. People like him less. He's not going to do as well. So these two states, no doubt it's going to go to the Republicans. I don't see Democrats winning here. but these two states are going to be lean states for the Republican Party. I would also add the 2nd District of Maine, and for the 2nd District of Nebraska, that would be lean for the Democratic Party. Lean states for Democrats, I would put Nevada probably. The state of Nevada, it's holding on. I mean, if you look at its shift, it did shift mostly to the right, I believe. If you look at 2016, that was 2.4%, 2020, 2.4%. So it barely did change, which was pretty surprising. I definitely did expect Joe Biden to do a little bit better there. So I might actually put Nevada in tilt, but right now I'm going to keep it in lean. I think that Kamala Harris will probably do a little bit better than Joe Biden. State of Nevada is slowly just a little bit moving to the left. And I think that Kamala Harris would appeal better to Nevada than Mike Pence would. For Mike Pence, I would also, of course, give him Texas as a lean state. I don't think it's going to go under 2%. It might even be likely for Mike Pence, but if you just go back to 2004, solid. 2008, it went to likely. 2012, it went back to solid barely, but 2016, 9%, 2020, 5.5%. So this state is going to become more and more blue. It's not going to flip blue in 2024. That's just not going to happen. Look at the shifts. Look at all those shifts. You did see, of course, in those metropolitan areas, Dallas, Austin, Houston. You saw them go more to the left. Joe Biden flipped Fort Worth, I believe. If you look at Texas, as you can see, of course, Tarrant County, Joe Biden flipped that county. So Fort Worth went blue. So did Dallas, of course. But if you look at the change, look at this, 55 points, Starr County, 55 points more to the right. Southern Texas is moving to the right, while, the more metropolitan areas are moving to the left. But of course, they make up a really small amount of the population. 9,000 votes. This county, 127 votes for Donald Trump. So pretty insignificant down here, but, they still do show that the state of Texas isn't moving to the left everywhere. In a lot of places, it isn't. So Texas, I would say, is lean. So would the state of Florida. It's going to be contested. Democrats are going to try. Bloomberg spent $100 million for Joe Biden here. The state of Florida at this point, I would just give up on it. State of Florida is not going to go blue in a while. The Cuban population, the Democrats, or the former Democrats in Miami-Dade County really just aren't feeling it anymore. 22 points. And this isn't some county with 500 people. This is the largest county where 1.1 million people voted. This county, 1.1 million voters. It went 22 points more Republican than in 2016. So taking a look at this, it was Miami-Dade that cost Biden Florida. If he had won it by the same amount, he probably would have won Florida, or been really, really close to it, done better than Hillary Clinton, because he did flip Pinellas County. He also did flip Duval County. So Joe Biden, it was Miami-Dade that cost him, and Florida's not going to go back blue in a while. It was blue for Obama barely in 2008 and 2012, but after that, it became more and more Trump. In 2024, I don't see those Cuban voters moving back to the left. We only have 6 more states here. I would first give the state of Michigan to the Democrats. So Michigan, I think, will remain a Democratic state. I just don't see Mike Pence appealing to them, even close to as well as Donald Trump did. I would also add Wisconsin in that column, as well as the state of Pennsylvania. So these 3 states, Democrats, I do think are going to win Wisconsin, Michigan, as well as Pennsylvania, giving them 274. Crossing 270 electoral votes. I also do think that in Arizona, it will stay blue in the 2024 presidential election. This state is just moving more and more to the left. Go back to, it's been a while actually. Yeah, go back to 1988. Solid. Clinton, of course, flipped it. That was the only flip for Arizona in decades. But then 2000, it was Bush. And then in 04 was Bush again. 08, Mitt Romney. 2012, 9.1%. 2020, it already went blue. So the state of Arizona, with Phoenix growing so fast, I think Kamala Harris will hold on to that state. And as well as the state of Georgia, I think that will be a Harris state as well. it's just Mike Pence just does not appeal to those types of voters as I think Donald Trump did in 2016. North Carolina, I would say the same thing. This state is moving to the left, except it's really slight. But I would say that the state of North Carolina would remain, not remain, but would flip to become a blue state. So many of these states I think would be really close. But right now, I would say the edge towards Kamala Harris, just because Mike Pence is quite a weak candidate in all honesty. I think Kamala Harris is a much more exciting candidate. Of course, a lot of people don't like her, and I understand that. But Mike Pence is one of the boringest people you could meet. And, unless Joe Biden does a horrible job, I really don't see Kamala Harris losing against Mike Pence, in my opinion. Of course it is early, and I'll admit that it's very, very early, and a lot of things could change. But right now, a couple of years before, I would say Kamala Harris definitely has the advantage over Mike Pence going into the 2024 presidential election. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Comment down below who you think would win, which states you would change, which margins you would change. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel if you have not. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you join my Discord server if you have not. I also have channel membership, 99 cents a month. Make sure you consider getting that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.